Hello again, MMA True Believers. I am Jason BURGOS for Sherdog.com, and tonight I am joined by an individual who over the last 2 years has established himself as one of the elite talents on the Professional Fighters League roster as a two-time champion at featherweight. However, with the 2020 season canceled and some other drama going on, the party has come to a bit of a stop, and he's here to talk about it, and that man is the one and only Lance Palmer. Mr. Party, sir, thanks for the time to vent a little on the latest in your career.
Thanks, man. I appreciate you having me on.
Oh, it's always a pleasure. Always enjoy talking. I have tons of questions, so I'll jump right into this now. So we're going to get into the PFL season cancellation thing, the recent frustrations with the league, you know, the how your father is involved with that a little bit. But first, I want to talk to you about your decision to re-sign with them. I talked to you a little bit last year before the championships about that, and honestly, I was surprised you re-signed so fast and did not go out and check, you know, test your value as one of the best featherweights in the world. Hindsight is 2020, but explain to me why you chose to re-sign with PFL with two championships already in the bag, and what people might think not too much to prove, because did it simply boil down to that chance to win $1 million each year while also getting, you know, the paydays you do get from the season? Was that part of it, which would make a lot of sense? I mean, it would be very understandable, honestly, considering how dominant you were. You know, why didn't you go and see what the UFC had to offer?
I think it really came down to our relationship with PFL, and like I've said many times, like my loyalty to PFL and former World Series of Fighting and Ray Sefo, you know, Carlos Silva when he was there.
Yeah.
I think it was just it was a lot for me. It was loyalty and the relationship. And it took a while to actually come to an agreement. We didn't really sign an agreement until the night before the fight in December. And so, obviously, stuff like that is just business. And all the contract stuff, it's just business. And that's the way things go. There's going to be disagreements. That's why you have your lawyers and managers going over everything with them. So that came down to just the loyalty thing. And at the time, I was really just when it came down to that part of it, I was like, I want to fight in the UFC eventually. I'd like to, you know, take a crack at it before my time is done in the fight game. And I know when I go to the UFC, I'm not going to make the same amount per fight that I'm making right now.
Ah, okay.
And that's just the way it is.
Yeah.
That's the way that it works. It's the UFC is a huge business, and you have to earn your worth there, and I'm completely fine with that. I kind of know, that's how it works, and that's how it's always worked. But I think at that point, I was just like, well, the amount per fight that I can make is more, and I could sign with UFC or Bellator or ONE FC. But when it came time, at the time, I didn't want to go anywhere but the UFC. And I knew I wouldn't make as much per fight. So that was basically the deciding factor on staying.
And that information, the idea that you wouldn't make as much, which I could see, that makes a lot of sense. Is that coming just from management, or did you happen to talk to guys like Marlon Moraes, Justin Gaethje, who, you know, moved over before PFL, you know, the switch of names? Did you maybe talk to them, and they did get less money than they were making in the World Series of Fighting or would have gotten from PFL?
Yeah, I mean, at the time, that was the case, but I think Gaethje's probably doing pretty well right now.
Now, fair enough. Now, in April, the PFL cancels the 2020 season, which surprised many. Obviously, the pandemic had really ramped up at that point, but to not at least postpone a few months, see what happens, was a bit of a head scratcher, especially since that was the stance taken by a lot of major sports. Let's just hold off. Let's see what happens. We'll make adjustments later. Also surprising was I was the first one to inform several fighters, including Ray Cooper, who's a champion. I told him first, which is insane that I was the first one to tell him. When the league finally did reach out to you and your manager, what did they say about the cancellation? Was it pretty much, you know, bear with us, we're going to hold you to this contract? Was there at least, you know, suggestions that there could be some events in fall and, you know, give the talent some money-making opportunities? Or was there any thought of asking them, like, look, can I maybe go fight outside for, you know, a fight here and there with your permission?
There was honestly no I didn't even I found out through Twitter because I had like,
Wow.
I was actually mowing because I own a landscape
Yeah,
and
yeah.
hardscape company and snow removal business. So I was out mowing one of our properties,
Wow.
and it was a Monday morning. I got off the mower, and I was like, this is weird. I had a ton of messages, and I was getting on my phone, going through text, and I was like, somebody was like, PFL's canceled this year, and I was like, I don't think so. I didn't really know, and I had nothing from the executives or anybody at PFL.
Wow.
And then I found out by going on Twitter and being tagged in
Wow.
like that they announced that the season was canceled, but there was no information given to us beforehand. So that was how pretty much everybody found out, was through word of mouth or
Wow.
from social media. And that kind of ticked me off at first.
Yeah.
I was like, all right, well, maybe there's a reason. And I had talked to Pete Murray a little bit after that because he wanted to get on the phone and kind of see where I'm at with it. And even then, he told me that there's going to be one show early fall, and maybe if they can get that show off in early fall, then there'd be another one in December before the end of the year. And it was about the fighter safety and this and that. And this was before the UFC had been doing shows, so I'm like, all right, I buy it. I buy the whole thing, and I was like, I'm with you. I'm with PFL. I'm a company guy. And then it got to this situation where in June we see the UFC start picking up. They're doing their own thing. They're starting to have cards, and I'm starting to get frustrated. And obviously, I'm still with I'm still with them throughout that process. Even though I disagreed to sign the contract extension and accept that $1,000 a month for 5 months, just because that's kind of, I don't know, I don't want to say slap in the face, but I kind of want to say that it's disrespectful to try and offer me $1,000 a month for only 5 months when it's 18 months that I'll be off if I'm in PFL season next year. So that was kind of what started to rub me the wrong way, and so I didn't sign that. I was like, I'd rather not take any money and not get an extension on the contract, because that extends your contract for an entire either 12 or 18 months.
Wow.
I don't even remember because I never looked at it. But so that's kind of where I started to get irritated a little bit with it. And we get to July, we start having, there's more shows. There's organizations like LFA, Titan Fighting, I think it's ACA in Russia, Brave.
There's some Japanese ones. One.
Yeah, like ONE FC, Bellator. Everything is going. Everything is moving. Except for PFL.
Yep.
And look, I already know that they're not doing a season. That's not what I'm worried about. I'm not worried about a season at this point. I'm worried about not having competition for an entire 18 months in the middle of the prime of my career. That I'll never get back. And I did something with another, I had an interview with another person, and they posted it, and a lot of the comments on Instagram and social media were, man, this guy made over $2 million the last 2 years. What's he already broke? No, I'm not broke. I want to compete. It's not about the money. It's about competing. If I sit for 18 months, it better be because I blew my ACL, MCL, everything out of my knee, and I'm making a recovery. It better not be because they decide that they don't want to have fights for 18 months. And that's where I stand with it. I have plenty of income streams. I mean, I've been lucky enough to be a champ 2 times, been able to invest my money correctly. I have my own business. I have investments in the market. I have investments in real estate. I mean, it's not an issue of the money. If it was an issue of the money, I would have accepted the $1,000 a month for 5 months. I think a lot of these casual fans and these people that like to talk smack online, they don't really understand when you're an athlete, you want to just do what you're. If I wanted to retire, I want it to be on my terms, not an 18-month retirement because they don't want to have a show.
And then the crazy thing about that too is people talking shit, which is no shocker because there's just such a high level of hate in MMA fans. But one, and you have been talking to me about this too, You don't get a whole million. You get like half of that. There's taxes, people, and then even
Yeah.
then, you're not planning to have what's really a million when you add the two together, probably to be using it and using it. That's to save for the rest of your life, kind of thing. You're not supposed to be doing that. So since we're on this track and the $1,000 stipend and everything like that, I wanted to quickly go back to the new contract you got. So could you give me an idea of like how much you are losing out on? Like, could you tell me like what you were supposed to get this season per fight, or if you don't want to say what the new deal was, could you tell me how much you were making in season fights in like season 1 and season 2, just so people can get an idea of how much you probably should be making compared to what you are now?
Well, that was another thing before we get into that is the amount of the how do we say this? The contract, if I don't fight in 6 months, I'm supposed to get paid my show and win.
Oh wow! For every season fight, or just like one fight?
Just I'm supposed to get paid for one fight.
Okay.
So I haven't had a fight, and it's been more than 6 months. But they're using the pandemic as their reason, and they're probably collecting the PPP or whatever it's called. So they're still getting paid, but I'm not getting paid, and I'm not getting released or anything or having a fight. So that's kind of my frustration. There's 3 options here that could be handled, and it could have been handled a lot better by them. And I could have had no reason to even talk about it, to be honest. But so basically, getting back to the fight pay, if I fought one time this year, that's plenty enough money to pay for my entire year of my mortgage and everything else that I have going on for the year.
Yeah.
So one regular season fight, I make enough money for my entire year. But going back to what you said before, making that money and winning the season and winning it twice, that's money that I wanted put away for my retirement and for investments. That's not money that I wanted to burn through for basically not having a job for 18 months. And so, I mean, that's why I'm in the truck right now, in my work truck, and I'm doing patio jobs and staying busy, because I don't want to burn into the money that I've worked hard to make. I want that to be for my future kids, for my future, for my retirement. You don't get a retirement in this sport, and that was the whole point of me wanting to win this thing.
Now, you made a great point when I saw like your interview with MMA Fighting, just like you were saying before about all these leagues have started up, and like this is the one league that hasn't yet. Aside from the recent stuff going on with your father that we'll talk about a bit, have you heard from the league since April? Has it been just straight up radio silence? Has there even been rumblings from a source, maybe not the highest level, but somebody there's there might be fall winter shows like past what they told you April, like even in the last month or so? Have you even heard from them aside from that press release regarding your father?
I mean, I've talked to Ray. I talked to Ray a couple weeks ago, and he seemed like he wasn't really completely sure, but he wanted to try and work on something for the fall. And I've had Ray's back since day one. He's had my back since day one. He's for the fighters.
Yeah.
He's a former fighter. He's somebody who understands the fight game and understands if you don't fight, you don't get paid.
Yep.
He knows the game, but there's people above Ray that he really can't go above in this scenario. And, it's kind of out of his hands. He just has to kind of play the game at this point like we do. And, but that's as far as it went. I haven't talked to anybody else since then. Wow. And my manager, Ali, has been, I'm assuming he's talked to them once or twice, but there really hasn't been any headway. I don't really have time to go through and bash somebody. So this isn't bashing PFL. This is just like, look, everybody else is working. Why are we not working?
Yeah.
It's like, I don't want to waste my time for 18 months of my career when, I mean, I went through this game already in the beginning of my career where I wasn't making money, and I was having trouble getting fights, and I wasn't fighting 8 months at a time. That's not what I want to do. If I'm going to be doing that, then I just want to be done fighting and go full force into my next part of my life.
Now let's talk about the whole thing with your father. He allegedly made some socially unpopular posts on Instagram. Now I also add the account is private. He tagged the league in them. The posts were in their view in poor taste. And I think a great point you've made in a couple interviews since is that comments your father makes are not automatically a shared opinion by you. You guys don't necessarily have a hive mind. So when you get the call from Ray Seffel on the league feeling they need to make this public statement denouncing the post, like what were your thoughts? Did you even know about the post starting off with? Were you stunned? Did you think it was ridiculous? And did Ray even admit it was kind of silly, but he's just kind of doing his marching orders from people above him?
Well, the first thing on that is he didn't tag PFL. This was nothing to do with PFL.
Okay.
Somebody who follows my dad tagged PFL on the comment section.
Oh, wow.
So that's
okay.
why it makes it even dumber.
So they
of a
stooged him
situation.
off, kind of.
They're basically just searching for a reason to try
Yeah.
and make my family look bad.
Yeah.
I guess I really don't know, because how many times have MLB or UFC or NBA been tagged in some kind of post
Yeah.
from some random person, and they don't go out making a statement about what that person said or did?
Mm-hmm.
So the post had nothing to do with PFL. He never tagged PFL in it. Somebody else randomly tagged PFL in the post on his private profile. We could get into right or wrongs or whatever, but
Yeah.
in this scenario, PFL has no right to even make a post about my dad. He's not employed by PFL.
Yeah.
He didn't say anything to them or about them or tag them. They were tagged in a comment in the comment section under a post on his private profile. At that point, to me, it was just ridiculous. And when Ray called me about it, he let me know, like, we just have to do this because we were tagged in it.
Yeah.
And I said, well, why? What does that have to do with it? I don't think he really knew. He just had to do his due diligence and let me know. That whole situation is kind of weird in the first place, but my dad's probably gotten, a bunch of backlash for something that people can't even see because his profile is private, and those people that don't follow him can't see anything. So for them to go out of there, and my dad's name isn't Wayne anyways.
Yeah, I've
so
seen
they
that.
said Wayne Palmer, and so there's a lot of wrongs there, and that's something that'll be taken care of at a later date once we get all this other stuff handled. So I can't really talk any more about that, but it was just ridiculous. Anything one to say, like, my dad was on the phone with Bubba Jenkins for an hour on Saturday night just talking and BSing, and anybody that knows my dad or me or my family knows that we're not racist people. We don't say anything racist to anybody, because I think that was kind of what PFL was trying to get at with one of his comments or his posts. And it was just really frustrating from that part of it, because people know the integrity that I have as a person, and anything that has to do with the movement of Black Lives Matter or any other race or ethnicity. I've got friends of every race and ethnicity. I have no discrimination towards anybody. So for them to, obviously they couldn't find it on my page if they had to try and search my dad's private page to find something, and to even make anything of it is kind of laughable. I mean, none of those movements are laughable, so I don't want anybody to try and twist my words. I'm just saying that for them to go out of their way to make a post about something that had nothing to do with me, and they weren't even tagged on my dad's post, someone tagged them in the comment section. So trying to clear this whole thing up, it really doesn't make sense to begin with, because I don't know where they came from to try and post that, because instead of posting that, why don't you try and work on getting a fight together?
And so, would you say that you don't want to get too much into it because there may be legal action from your father towards the PFL over this whole thing?
Yeah, I think it's there's a lot of things that were wrong in that whole scenario. And you got to remember, not only my dad but my mom. There's a lot of people that could get negativity from this whole situation.
True. Yeah.
Especially the way the country is right now, and politically, people are trying to split races and split things because of the politics going on, and with everything everything else going on, and that's not a safe scenario for anybody to be in. So there could be legal action that could take place in the future.
So all this stuff, the cancel season, the $1,000 stipend offer, slap in the face, being stuck in a deal and with no planned fights, and the stuff with your father has led to you to ask for your release. Obviously, they're going to hold you to this contract like grim death. I mean, not only because you are one of their best talents, if not their best, but probably just out of spite at this point. So lay out for me why you think you may have an actual chance to get out of this deal, more so like on a legal level, more so than a personal level, because with stuff like this, you got to have some sort of legal reasoning to be able to get out of a deal like this. Is it like the 6 months not getting a fight thing, not getting pay? You know, where do you see an angle for you to maybe get out of this deal?
Well, that's part of it, but as far as that goes, they're using the pandemic as a reason to
They have clauses.
extend, to extend the contract. But they're saying that it's a natural disaster, which it's not. So that's where it starts getting into litigations and things like that. But that's only going to extend my time not fighting if we go into litigations. So, I mean, the reason at this point why I asked for my release is because the stuff with my dad, because that's just taking family into business. You don't put somebody's family into a business scenario, because there's no other reason why you would have to make a statement like that unless you're angry with your position on me putting them in the media. And I'm speaking my mind. You know how many people that fight for PFL who are like, you got offered $1,000 a month for 5 months, and then they're saying they didn't get offered that, and they're saying they didn't get offered anything to sit.
Wow.
And there's a lot of people that are unhappy, but they're afraid to say something. And that's kind of why I wanted to make my voice be heard, because I don't need the money. It's not about the money. It's about the competition. I love to compete. If I didn't love to compete, I definitely wouldn't be fighting for a living.
And that's interesting that you make that point. That's exactly where I was going to go in terms of other fighters, because you, like, for example, I mean, you're one of the fortunate ones, like you explained. You know, you have your life set up and have revenue sources and stuff like that, but that's not the situation for everybody. For example, they just signed guys like Jordan Young, Johnny Case right before the season got canceled, and are holding them to these deals. Like, they chose them to sign with, and now they're screwed for 18 months. That's interesting. Like, how much have you been hearing from other fights? Have they also been, supportive of your the stories with, MMA fighting and ESPN and stuff like that, this one coming out? Like, are you hearing a lot of stuff like, yeah, man, say it, because, we're not going to say it, and, these horror stories of, like, I'm not getting offered anything?
Yeah, I mean, like, it's crazy that they released Vinny Magalhaes and a couple other guys who were, top guys over the past 2 years. And then, they're keeping some other people who aren't as highly regarded just in my opinion of where they finished in the past couple years. But, like guys like him, he has the freedom to do what he wants. Steven Tyler got released or cut. I don't know how that worked, but he can go fight wherever he wants. He can do anything. And then you have other people who are just sitting and they're just stuck. And it's 18 months. Like, they're going to go back to work and get a regular job. You're not going to be able to pay your bills for over a year unless you've won the $1 million. And that was the first comment that threw me off earlier this year, was to my manager, well, Lance has won the tournament twice. I think he'll be all right. It's like, yeah, I'll be all right, but that's not the point. I want to fight. And if I'm not going to fight for you, I want to fight for somebody else.
And you only have a small window. I mean, yeah, you have the money, but the point of this game is to pile up as much as you can in this window so you don't have to worry as much later, because this sport takes so much out of you. But, to get away from the negativity and stuff and everything going on with this, I want to talk about your close friendship with Joseph Benavidez. You once trained out of Team Alpha Male for a long time, but since have bounced around from different gyms since then. You recently posted on Instagram how you guys have been close for almost a decade now. What do you feel makes your friendship so special with Joe, and how hard was it to see him come up short again in that rematch with Davison Figueiredo recently?
Man, Joseph and our relationship and friendship has been so organic, like from day one of meeting each other at the gym in Sacramento. It was never like, we never like tried to be friends. We just became friends, became close. We get along really well. We have a lot of the same similar taste. We like a lot of the same things. We like shoes. We like fashion. We like art. We like music. Sometimes we don't like the same of those things, but it's at least something that gives us a conversation piece. And I mean, I've known Joe since pretty much when he met Megan. So, you know, we call each other the fam because we've been around each other for almost a decade together. And it's just, he's been in the corner for me, win or lose. I've been in the corner for him, win or lose. I mean, we've had so many ups and downs together throughout life and throughout fighting. So it's kind of one of those things where, I mean, whether he likes it or not, we're in this thing together. You know, it's like we could have wives and kids, and we're still gonna be best friends no matter what. And I think he'll be okay with that. But I mean, we've been close. We've been through a lot of stuff together. We've helped each other out, even from across the country. You know, I've cornered him in fights. He's cornered me in fights.
Yeah.
So it's it sucked to see it not go his way in that last fight, and it's tough to see that he may be almost done fighting. But you know, it's always better to go out in your own terms instead of someone else's. And still, you know, he has his health. He has a great family and support system around him, friends, family. He's gonna have plenty of opportunities, I'm sure, with the UFC as either an employee or doing things for them. So I'm not worried about him at all as far as his future goes, whether he chooses to fight once or 10 times. I think you know, I'll have his back no matter what, and I think he'll be set up either way.